It started with a news report, one of those human interest pieces that usually served as a buffer between the political scandals and the sports scores. A mysterious illness in a small town, they said, was nothing to worry about. Probably just some factory spill. By the time the truth came out, it was already too late for us all. I'm not much for writing or speaking, but someone's got to record this. If you're listening to this, maybe it's a warning, or maybe just a last testament to a world gone to hell. They called it the Red Hunger because of the way it made the infected act. Mostly ravenous, mindless, tearing into anything that moved. It wasn't long before our quaint little suburb of Gakuge Daigaku in Japan became a charnel house. According to national reports, the infection spread like wildfire. It spared no one, hitting the schools, the mall, and the parks. I locked myself in after I saw what happened to the Harris family next door. Like me, they migrated to Japan soon after Donald Trump was elected 45th President of the United States. It was Mr. Harris who changed first, attacking his own kids. I could hear the wet, ripping sounds through the walls. In Japan, walls have a voice of their own. Somehow the screams suddenly stopped. They left only the sound of something wet being chewed. I knew better than to ignore the signs. An entire family had just been turned into zombies. The worst part was that they lived next door. At any moment, they could be standing at my door, or maybe patrolling my neighborhood. That was 3 days ago. I haven't slept much since. The sound of sirens in the distance made me jump in fear more than once. During the lockdown, the TV and internet went down the first night. It left me with only my thoughts and the occasional scream in the distance to keep me company. Thankfully, I had bought enough supplies to last me for 5 months. Japan was known for many things. Its many manga publications, but also their love for canned food. I'm not a brave man, I never was. But when the pounding started on my door, I knew I had to face what was out there. I grabbed the old baseball bat from the closet, the one I used back in high school, and I prayed. Not to God, I think he left this place a while back, but to anything that was listening for just a bit of that old courage they talk about in stories. The door splintered on the third hit. Madame Aiko, or what was left of her, stumbled in. Her eyes were bloodshot, and her mouth... Jesus, her mouth was just a ruin of teeth and flesh. She came at me, making a sound no human throat should make. I knew at that moment that I had to do something. The bat swung almost on its own, connecting with a sickening crunch. She didn't stop, though. It took 3 more swings before she stayed down. A lot of rotten blood spilled on the floor. No matter how you look at it, it was just nasty. Like really disgusting stuff. That was the first. I knew it wouldn't be the last. I knew I had to get out of town and find someplace safe, if such a place still existed. I stepped over Madame Siko's body and out into the street, leaving my landlord behind. The world was a horror show. Bodies lay in the yards and the street, some torn apart, others getting up to join the macabre dance of the Red Hunger. I didn't know how long I've been running now or how many of them I've put down. I didn't feel human anymore. Maybe I'm not. But I kept moving and kept swinging the bat, because the alternative was to stop, and stopping meant joining the feast of the Red Hunger. And I'll be damned if I'm part of this unseen scourge. The Japanese authorities made sure to dispatch a rescue unit. They were stationed at key locations, and only those who survived the zombies were allowed to get past the checkpoint. However, one night, it all changed. They received new directives. The Prime Minister issued new commands. The operation went from search and rescue to Subate Haijo Suru. In layman's terms, eliminate everyone. A few survivors were not lucky. They had wandered too close, and the units opened fire on them. They were shot dead on the spot. The sound of gunshots and the screams of the victims attracted the nearby zombies. The horde of creatures slowly grew to a considerable size. First, there were 20, but now there are hundreds of them. I watched from the top of a skyscraper as it unfolded. One of the Japanese officers' radios was in for backup. They had limited numbers and ammo. Whatever they had left wouldn't be enough to stop the incoming wave of zombies. The offensive lasted for 10 minutes only, and then came the silence. The zombies had won. From where I was standing, there wasn't much left of the city either. If anything, Gakuge Daigaku was no longer safe for humans. I was lucky enough to find high ground where I set up camp. I had little to nothing of my own, except for a manga titled One Piece by Eiichiro Oda. It was a good book and a good distraction for as long as it lasted, but I feared the worst may yet come.